The sprawling campus of the Intergalactic Cadet Academy stretched as far as the eye could see, its gleaming towers reaching up toward the swirling stars. Nestled on a neutral asteroid halfway between Earth and the Zarnathian Empire, the Academy was a beacon of cooperation and progress, a place where the brightest minds from countless civilizations trained together to ensure peace in the galaxy. Cadet Jackson Holt adjusted his regulation jumpsuit, his heart pounding as he stepped off the shuttle. Around him, beings from dozens of species milled about, each more alien and awe-inspiring than the last. There were multi-limbed Yalvani engineers, the crystalline shards of Lyris, and, most imposing of all, the towering horned Zarnathians. The Zarnathians were infamous for their warrior culture, and their cadets were always at the top of the Academy's rankings. Jackson was the only human in this year's intake, and he felt the weight of Earth's expectations on his shoulders. Humanity's admission to the Academy had been hard-won, and now it was up to him to prove that humans could stand shoulder to shoulder with the galaxy's finest. This was more than just personal ambition. It was about securing a place for humanity among the stars. Every step he took toward the orientation hall felt heavier with the burden of responsibility. The air in the docking bay was alive with the hum of conversation, the clash of languages and dialects forming a tapestry of sound. Jackson's translator implant worked overtime, automatically converting the cacophony into something comprehensible. Still, the experience was overwhelming. He was used to the diversity of Earth, but this was on an entirely different level. Every species moved with a confidence born from centuries, sometimes millennia of interstellar experience. Jackson felt like a guppy in an ocean of whales. As he navigated the crowd, he felt a pair of glowing amber eyes lock onto him. Turning, he saw a Zarnathian cadet towering above the rest of the crowd. His crimson battle armor gleamed, and his horns were adorned with intricate carvings that marked him as elite even among his kind. This could only be Corin Drax, the reigning champion of the Academy, and its most notorious bully. Corin sneered, his voice a low rumble that carried through the hall. "A human? Here? I've seen hatchlings with more presence. Try not to embarrass your species, runt." Jackson's fists clenched, but he kept his expression neutral. He had heard about Corin's antics. The Zarnathian had made a sport of challenging new cadets, especially those he deemed weak. But Jackson wasn't here to start trouble. Not yet, anyway. "I'll do my best," Jackson replied evenly, walking past the towering alien. Corin's laughter echoed behind him, a deep, grating sound that seemed to mock Jackson's every step. The other cadets parted instinctively, giving Corin a wide berth. It was clear that his reputation preceded him, and few were willing to cross him. As Jackson approached the orientation hall, he couldn't shake the feeling of those amber eyes still boring into his back. The hall itself was a marvel of engineering, its walls shimmering with holographic displays that showcased the Academy's illustrious history. From the first galactic peace accords to the joint exploration of distant star systems, the images were a testament to what cooperation could achieve. Inside, rows of seats filled quickly as cadets found their places. Jackson took a spot near the middle, trying to blend in. The orientation began with a holographic projection of the Academy's dean, a serene-looking Lyrisian whose crystalline form refracted light into a dazzling array of colors. Her voice was melodic, yet commanding, as she welcomed the cadets and outlined the challenges ahead. "You have all been chosen because you represent the best of your worlds," she said, her words resonating through the hall. "But greatness is not enough. Here you will be tested beyond your limits. You will learn not just to excel, but to adapt, to collaborate, and to overcome. Remember, unity is our strength." As the speech continued, Jackson felt a mix of pride and trepidation. He glanced around at the other cadets, many of whom were already whispering and exchanging glances. Everyone seemed confident, eager to prove themselves. Everyone except Jackson, who felt like a solitary outlier in a sea of alien excellence. After the orientation, the cadets were given a tour of the campus. Jackson marveled at the state-of-the-art facilities: zero-gravity combat arenas, advanced starship simulators, and laboratories equipped with technology far beyond anything Earth had developed. Yet, as impressive as it all was, Jackson couldn't help but notice the sidelong glances and hushed whispers whenever he passed. Being the only human made him a curiosity, and not necessarily in a good way. The tour ended at the cadet dormitories, where each species was assigned quarters adapted to their unique needs. Jackson's room was Spartan but functional, a single bed and a desk overlooking the asteroid's rocky surface. He unpacked his belongings, trying to ignore the knot in his stomach. Tomorrow would bring the first round of physical and mental assessments, and he needed to be ready. As he lay on his bed that night, staring up at the holographic projection of Earth on his ceiling, Jackson thought about his family back home. His parents had been so proud when he was selected for the academy, but their parting words echoed in his mind. Not a special desire to retire. You're not just representing yourself, Jackson. You're representing all of us. He closed his eyes, determination hardening in his chest. He wouldn't let them down. No matter what it took, he would prove that humanity belonged here. The next morning, Jackson awoke early, determined to make a good impression. The first assessment was a physical endurance test in the Academy's simulated alien environment chamber. Each cadet would face a scenario tailored to their species, designed to push them to their limits. Jackson was assigned a simulation based on a high-gravity planet. The moment he stepped into the chamber, the weight of the artificial gravity pressed down on him, making every movement a struggle. He grit his teeth and pushed forward, navigating a treacherous terrain of shifting rocks and steep inclines. Sweat poured down his face, but he refused to give up. When he finally emerged from the chamber, gasping for breath, he saw D'ren watching him from across the room. The Zarnathian's lips curled into a mocking grin, but Jackson ignored him. He had survived the test, and that was what mattered. Everything always seemed to work out. The day continued with a series of challenges, from piloting simulations to tactical strategy games. Jackson's performance was solid, though not exceptional. He could feel the unspoken judgment from the other cadets, their skepticism a constant weight on his shoulders. But he also noticed something else, a quiet respect growing among a few of them. And that small glimmer of acceptance fueled his resolve. As the sun set over the asteroid's horizon, Jackson returned to his dorm, exhausted but satisfied. He had made it through his first day without faltering, and that was a victory in itself. But as he prepared for bed, a notification flashed on his room's console. It was a message from the Academy's central system, listing the top performers of the day. Jackson's name wasn't on it, but neither was D'ren's. The Zarnathian's absence from the list surprised him, but he didn't dwell on it. Tomorrow was another day, and the journey was just beginning. Little did he know, the real challenge was yet to come, and it would start with a discovery that would change everything. The first week of training at the Intergalactic Cadet Academy was a whirlwind of tests and introductions, each day more intense than the last. By the end of it, Jackson Holt had managed to carve out a fragile sense of belonging among high-S peers. Despite the snickers and skeptical glances from some, he had found allies in a few cadets who respected his determination. Notably, a shard named Kale, whose crystalline form glimmered like a living gem, and a Yalvani named Vrix, whose forearms worked with mechanical precision in any task. Yet beneath the surface of routine, Jackson felt an undercurrent of something greater. Whispers among the cadets spoke of an unsolved mystery at the academy, a legacy that every class had encountered but never fully understood. The subject came up one night in the common area, where a group of cadets had gathered to unwind after a grueling day. "They say it's buried somewhere beneath the training grounds," Cale said, his voice a musical hum that resonated in the air. His light refracted off the crystalline facets of his face, casting tiny rainbows on the walls. "What's buried?" Jackson asked, leaning forward in his seat. He'd heard snippets of similar rumors, but this was the first time anyone had been willing to talk openly about it. Brix chuckled, his mandibles clicking as he spoke. "Nobody knows, but every year some cadets try to find out. They call it the Academy's secret. Supposedly, it's a relic left behind by the founders. Something powerful. Powerful enough to scare the instructors into silence?" Jackson asked skeptically. Cale's light dimmed slightly, a sign of seriousness among the shards. Maybe. Or maybe it's dangerous. There are stories about cadets disappearing. Nothing official, of course, but... The conversation left Jackson intrigued. He couldn't shake the feeling that this so-called secret was more than just a legend. And if there was any truth to it, perhaps it was something that could level the playing field for him at the Academy. After all, humanity had always thrived on uncovering the unknown. The next morning, Jackson decided to investigate. He didn't share his plan with Cale or Vix, not yet anyway. If this was as dangerous as the rumors suggested, he didn't want to drag them into it unless he was sure it was worth pursuing. Consequently, he chose to spend his solitary week in a large Cranmere palace, simply writing. Once filled with joy. "I love you." His first stop was the Academy's library, a cavernous space filled with holographic archives and physical artifacts from countless civilizations. The head librarian, a wizened Zilothian with 12 eyes, watched him closely as he navigated the rows of glowing shelves. The library had been their society's vital effort. "Gad Holt," the librarian said, her voice echoing like a chorus. "You're looking for something specific." Jackson hesitated. He didn't want to reveal too much, but he also didn't think he could bluff his way past someone who had likely seen and heard it all. "I've heard rumors about a relic," he said carefully. "Something connected to the Academy's founding. Do you know anything about it?" The librarian's eyes narrowed, her overlapping pupils shimmering like oil slicks. "Many cadets come here seeking answers to that question. Few find anything worth knowing. Be careful where your curiosity leads you, human. The past has a way of reaching into the present." She didn't offer any further help, but Jackson noticed a subtle flick of one of her elongated fingers toward a section of the library marked Historical Anomalies. Taking the hint, he made his way there and began combing through the archives. Hours passed as he sifted through records of the Academy's construction, early missions, and the treaties that had brought together its founding species. Most of it was routine, fascinating in its own right, but unrelated to the mystery. It wasn't until he stumbled across an entry titled "The Founder's Vault" that his heart began to race. The entry was incomplete, its data corrupted, but what remained hinted at a hidden chamber beneath the Academy, sealed by advanced technology and accessible only through a series of tests designed to measure the worthiness of those who sought it. There were no details about what the chamber contained, only a cryptic warning. To seek the vault is to challenge the fabric of unity. Jackson's mind raced. Unity was the Academy's motto, its guiding principle. What could be so dangerous that it threatened the very foundation of their mission? Over the next few days, Jackson discreetly gathered more information. He studied the Academy's layout, paying close attention to the areas that seemed underutilized or unusually well secured. One location stood out: a forgotten section of the training grounds, cordoned off under the guise of structural instability. It was there that Jackson decided to start his search. One evening, under the pretense of practicing navigation drills, Jackson slipped away from his assigned group and made his way to the restricted area. The grounds were eerily silent, the usual hum of cadet activity absent. He crept past the warning signs and into the shadows of the abandoned facility. The structure was ancient, its walls etched with glyphs from multiple civilizations. Dust coated the floors, and faint traces of energy crackled along the edges of the room, as if the place were half asleep. Jackson's pulse quickened as he scanned the area with his handheld sensor. The device pinged faintly, leading him to a sealed door embedded in the far wall. The door was unlike anything he'd seen before. It shimmered with a strange iridescent light, shifting colors as he approached. There was no visible mechanism to open it, but a circular panel at its center pulsed faintly. Taking a deep breath, Jackson placed his hand on the panel. The door responded instantly, the colors coalescing into a bright white light. A voice, calm yet imposing, filled the room. "You identify yourself?" "Cade Jackson Holt," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The light dimmed, and the door began to hum. "Access requires demonstration of intent. Proceed." "What?" Before Jackson could ask what that meant, the ground beneath him shifted. The floor transformed into a maze of shifting panels, each one lighting up in a random sequence. A holographic projection appeared in the air before him, displaying a complex equation. Solved to advance, failed to retreat. Jackson's mind raced. The equation was unlike anything he had seen before, blending mathematics with alien symbology. He crouched down, using his sensor to analyze the symbols and cross-reference them with his training. Time seemed to blur as he worked, his focus narrowing to a single point. When he finally entered the solution, the maze beneath him stabilized, and the door's light shifted to green. How could the door not open randomly before the passage of light? "Step forward," the voice commanded. Jackson obeyed, his heart pounding as the door slid open. Beyond it lay a chamber bathed in soft golden light. At its center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a small, intricately carved object. It looked like a cube, its surfaces adorned with glyphs that seemed to shift and change as he approached. He reached out cautiously, his fingers brushing the surface of the cube. Instantly, a surge of energy coursed through him, filling his mind with flashes of images and sounds. He saw the Academy's founding, the conflicts that had nearly torn it apart, and the desperate measures taken to preserve its unity. He understood, in that moment, why the vault was hidden. The cube contained knowledge and power, power that could either unify or destroy. As Jackson stood there, the weight of his discovery settling on him, he realized he wasn't alone. A shadow moved in the doorway, and a familiar voice broke the silence. "Savager, I knew you'd come here, human," Corin Drax said, his amber eyes gleaming. "But you're not worthy of what you've found." Kathy, Jackson turned, his hand still on the cube. Worthy or not, the revelation of the vault had left Jackson Holt reeling. The intricately carved cube in his hands radiated a soft, otherworldly warmth, as though it were alive. It pulsed faintly, in rhythm with his heartbeat, as if it recognized him. Behind him, the imposing figure of Corin Drax blocked the only exit, his amber eyes gleaming with a mix of curiosity and hostility. "Step away from the artifact," Corin growled, his deep voice reverberating through the chamber. You've already meddled in things beyond your understanding, human. Jackson tightened his grip on the cube, meeting Corran's glare. Why are you here, Corran? What do you want with this? The Zarnathian warrior's lips curled into a predatory smile, to ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. You think the Academy's leaders don't know about this place. They've allowed it to remain hidden for a reason. If that's true, then why hasn't anyone destroyed it? Jackson countered. Maybe it's because this cube, whatever it is, isn't just a danger. It's an opportunity. Corran stepped closer, his armored boots clinking against the chamber's ancient floor. Opportunities like this have a cost. Do you even understand what you've uncovered? That cube contains the combined knowledge of the Academy's founders, knowledge so powerful it could either unite the galaxy or plunge it into chaos. And you think you're ready to wield that responsibility? Jackson's jaw tightened. I don't have all the answers, but I know one thing. Leaving this buried forever won't solve anything. The galaxy needs solutions, not secrets. Corran studied him for a long moment, then scoffed. You're bold for a human, I'll give you that. But boldness doesn't make you worthy. Before Jackson could respond, the chamber began to tremble. The glyphs on the walls lit up in a cascade of colors, and a low hum filled the air. The cube in Jackson's hands grew warmer, its pulsing intensifying. A voice, ancient and resonant, echoed through the chamber. There. Jackson and Corran exchanged wary glances as the floor beneath them shifted. The chamber reconfigured itself, walls sliding away to reveal a massive arena. Pillars of light erupted from the ground, forming a labyrinth of glowing pathways. At the center of the maze, a pedestal rose, bearing another artifact, a crystalline shard that shimmered with the same energy as the cube. What is this? Jackson asked, his voice barely audible over the hum. Corran's expression darkened. A test. The founders built this vault to challenge anyone who dared to seek its secrets. We have no choice but to play their game. The voice spoke again, its tone unwavering. Retrieve the shard. Only together can the path be revealed. Jackson's heart sank. The founders hadn't just created a test. They had designed it to require cooperation, even between rivals. He glanced at Corran, whose expression mirrored his own frustration. Looks like we're stuck with each other, Jackson said, and they glanced at each other, and Corran growled but nodded. Fine, but don't think for a second that I trust you. Amata's puzzled face flickered. Exercise will keep me calm? The maze was a labyrinth of shifting pathways, each glowing line altering its configuration as soon as they stepped onto it. Jackson and Corran quickly discovered that the paths required synchronization. Stepping out of alignment triggered energy barriers that forced them back. Interrupting that. This is impossible, Corran muttered after their third failed attempt to advance. The maze is designed to punish anyone who can't work as a team. Exactly, Jackson said, studying the glowing lines. We have to stop treating this like a competition. If we move in sync, the maze adjusts to let us through. Corran scowled but relented. They began coordinating their movements, each step carefully timed. Slowly but surely, they progressed through the labyrinth, the glowing pathways shifting to accommodate their unity. Along the way, they encountered obstacles that required both strength and intellect, tasks that neither could solve alone. At one point, they reached a massive chasm with no visible bridge. A series of glyphs hovered in the air, forming an intricate puzzle. Jackson's analytical mind kicked into gear, deciphering the patterns while Corran used his immense strength to stabilize a collapsing platform. Got it, Jackson shouted as he solved the puzzle. causing a shimmering bridge to materialize. "Finally," Corin grunted, wiping sweat from his brow. "Let's keep moving." Despite their mutual disdain, the two cadets found a rhythm. By the time they reached the center of the maze, their initial hostility had softened into a grudging respect. The pedestal stood before them, the crystalline shard glowing like a star. As they approached, the voice returned. "The shard represents unity. Together, you have proven your worth. Take it, and the path will be revealed. Act now." Jackson and Corin exchanged a glance. Without a word, they reached out simultaneously, their hands closing around the shard. The moment they touched it, a surge of energy enveloped them, filling their minds with visions. They saw the founders of the Academy, a coalition of beings from across the galaxy, working together to create a haven for learning and peace. They saw the struggles that had tested their unity and the sacrifices they had made to preserve it. The shard's energy seemed to pulse with a single undeniable truth. Unity was not a given. It was a choice, made and remade in the face of adversity. As the visions faded, the shard fused with the cube in Jackson's hands, forming a single luminous artifact. The chamber's hum ceased, and the maze dissolved, leaving them standing in the original room. "Well," Jackson said, breaking the silence, "that was intense." Corin nodded, his expression uncharacteristically thoughtful. "Maybe you're not as unworthy as I thought." Jackson managed a faint smile. "Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment." The artifact's light dimmed, signaling the end of their trial. Together they exited the chamber, the weight of their discovery settling on them. They both knew that the artifact was more than just a relic. It was a responsibility, and with it came questions that neither was ready to answer. Bethany hesitated. For now, though, they had proven something greater than themselves. Even the most unlikely allies could achieve greatness when they chose unity over division. And the galaxy, watching from afar, would soon feel the ripple effects of their discovery.